Om Jnanatirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tonight's lecture is titled, How Work Can Be Worship. There is a well-known saying, work is worship. This is a relatively modern saying. Maybe you know that there was a philosophy or an idea that was quite prevalent in India during the Swaraj movement, and then when India was newly independent. Certain people propagated the idea that India is too religious, and religion is the source of all of India's problem. I'm not saying this, I'm saying that others say this. So the idea was that we should have less religion and be more practical, and that India should become a progressive nation in line with the great nations of the Western world, which have become advanced by technology and not by religion. So a certain Pandit by family, first Prime Minister of India, gave the idea that the factories and the workshops and the dams, these shall be the mandirs of modern India. Mandir means temple, koil, not mandi. Sabji mandi means a market. But people were, that's why you see sometimes they could call the factory Shram Mandir. Shram means working like an ass. Because people in India by their culture are attached to worship. So they made this idea, work is worship. If you just work, that is worship. However, then we might wonder why in the various languages there are different words for work and for worship. If work is worship and there's no difference between it, then why is there a need for two words? And when we think of work, we think of working in a field, working in a factory, working in an office. And when we think of worship, we think of deities and incense and deepams and flowers. They're actually two different things. But to try to kill people's desire or proclivity, tendency to worship, someone has invented the philosophy, work is worship. So there's no need to do anything else, just work like an ass, and that is worship. So the idea of promoting work is worship is to stop people worshipping. There was a lot of atheistic propaganda in India at one time, like that, around, we can say from the time of independence, that period, there was so much, this is a great generalization. The Arya Samaj, even in the 19th century, was propagating, don't worship any deities. It's useless to worship deity. And despite all this propaganda, people still like to go to temples. And they like to do worship. Maybe a little adjusted to modern times, just like the place in Salem where the trucks stop, and they have the special puja for their trucks, and then they go on. So we don't find in Shastra any truck puja mentioned, but it's, Hinduism is very adaptive, we could say. But actually there is a way that work can be worship. Work itself, everyone has to do. Sharira yatra pichate na prasiddheda karmanaha. In Bhagavad Gita we find Lord Krishna telling Arjuna, everyone has to work. That you can't go through life successfully without doing some work. And that everyone has to do something at every moment. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit. You can't do nothing even for a moment. You have to do something. If you think, I'll completely stop all activities, well, then you have to stop breathing also. And then unless you're a Siddha yogi, you'll have the activity of dropping dead. That'll be your last work. Dead. Maranam. Even Siddha yogis, they can stop the breath, stop their breathing for some time, but then again they have to breathe. So you may think, well, that's not really work. Someone may ask you, what kind of work do you do? And you say, well, I breathe. You go for a job interview and they say, well, what are you good at? And they say, well, I'm expert at breathing. I've been practicing all my life. You say, well, you're not likely to get a job. But from the philosophical point of view, the breathing is also a kind of work. Because one of the various definitions or understandings of karma is that which produces reaction. And even breathing produces some reaction. One is using up one's quota of breaths. In lifetime in each life we have a quota of breaths. So by breathing we're paying off some, or we're experiencing some karma fall. And even bugs and microbes which are breathed in and destroyed by our breath, we also get a karmic reaction for that. Therefore Lord Krishna says, Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit. No one can be without some kind of work at every moment. Even if you just sit in one place, you're occupying that space, you're taking up some quota of some portion of the universe for your own personal use. That also counts as one kind of karma. Now, everyone has to work. The general understanding of work is, of course, that which produces some result. The farmer goes in the field, and there's plowing, and there's sowing, and there's replanting, and harvesting, and weeding, and there's so many activities a farmer has to do. And the result is that crops are produced. If that work is not done, then the crops won't be produced in the same quantities or to the same satisfactory level. In modern life, work, you don't usually see the result directly, but for your own result, you get money. A lot of people who work nowadays, they don't really produce anything. Shopkeepers, they don't produce anything, they just sell things. People who work in offices, and doctors, and teachers, and lawyers, and travel agents, they don't produce anything. But they are looking for the result, that they get some money. For them, that is the result. And with the money, they purchase the necessities for their life to go on. So that's not worship. They may spend some part of their income for worship, but the work in and of itself is not worship. Now, we're supposed to be talking about how work can be worship, because simply working is more or less on the animal platform. On the animal platform there is ahara nidra bhaya maitun, eating, sleeping, mating and defending. And people work to get money to make arrangements for their eating, sleeping, mating and defending. Something supposed to be something, or conceived of as something higher and better. Although generally people worship with the idea of invoking a higher power to facilitate their eating, sleeping, mating and defending. Just like the truck drivers, they do the truck devata puja or whatever that is, so that they can go on with their journey safely, because driving a truck is quite dangerous. We see lots of trucks upside down or completely smashed up. So to get protection, mystic protection, so that they can continue with their eating, sleeping, mating and defending, they conduct some worship. So almost all worship that goes on, it is for invoking a higher power for material benefit. Saraswati Puja is conducted. The students, they want to pass their exam so they can join the queue of people looking for jobs. Vinayaka Puja that's like a general. Ganapati is a general god, the god for everything, all the problems, all the vignas. In Chennai there is Visa Ganesh. He's known that you want a visa for Australia, America, you have to go to Visa Ganesh. Of course, so many Indians who went to these countries, they're coming back now. They're finding that, well, whatever we went to America for, the same thing is in India now. Now in India we also have highways and mega traffic jams, terrorism, so what's the difference? Might as well come back to India. Might as well get shot by an Indian as by an American. Deshi terrorism. Desi terrorism. Anyway, well, of course some people think that blowing people up is a kind of worship. We don't agree with that. But generally worship is conducted to facilitate one's work, to facilitate one's sense gratification. And a portion out of a kind of gratefulness, a portion of the fruit of the work, namely the rupees, that is apportioned for worship. And we'll find often people who become quite rich, then they build temples with the idea that I need some support from higher up to keep my business running on. Now, if we actually understand Bhagavad Gita as it is, which is pretty rare, because most people have not the slightest clue about what Bhagavad Gita is all about. Most people they've never read Bhagavad Gita or even thought about reading it. Most people, the only contact they have with Bhagavad Gita is if they have to go to a court and swear as a witness. This is imported from the Western system of putting the hand on the Bible and swearing that you speak the truth as you prepare to talk a whole bunch of lies. So I swear in the Bhagavad Gita. I haven't got the faintest idea what it's all about, but anyway, I'm a Hindu, so our book is Bhagavad Gita. And then you get the people who actually try to read Bhagavad Gita, and they probably understand less than the people who don't even try to read it, because they mess up all the ideas in their contaminated minds and come up with theories like work is worship. The idea that, well, we don't need to do worship anymore because we just discovered that work is worship. But if we do understand Bhagavad Gita as it is, which will make our life meaningful, then we can understand how work can actually be worship. As I was quoting Lord Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtat karma krit. No one can exist for a moment without doing some kind of work. And Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, his ultimate teaching, Manmana bhava man bhaktaha. Always think of me and become my devotee. So you may think, well, what am I supposed to do? I have to think of Krishna all the time, but I have to work all the time. So what do I do? One or the other. It's confusing. But Lord Krishna also states in Bhagavad Gita, Mat karma krit refers to one who works for Krishna. Everyone works for a result, for sense gratification. But if we work with the idea of satisfying Krishna, then every moment of our life is worship. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna gives the idea of what is actually karma yoga. Yad karoshi, yad ashnasi, yad shuhoshi, dadasi yad tapasyasi kaunteya, tat karushva madarpanam. He tells Arjuna that everything that you do, everything that you eat, everything that you offer and give away, whatever austerity you may do, that should be done as an offering to me. So everyone has to work. But are we working for our sense gratification, or are we working for Krishna? To understand how to work for Krishna, we have to take training. Otherwise, we meet many people who they say, yes, actually I'm a karma yogi. They like to quote from Bhagavad Gita. We used to find that when many shopkeepers would quote Karmanyevadhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana. They like to quote these two lines, that you certainly have a right to work, but don't be attached to the results of work. So many people, they like to quote this and say, you see, I'm working, but I'm not attached. But simply to say I'm not attached doesn't mean that one is not attached. The practical manifestation of not being attached is that we actually offer everything to Krishna. How do we do that practically? For Arjuna, to whom the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, that was simple and straightforward. He was working directly under Lord Krishna's instruction. And he actually, from his own choice, he didn't want to work. He didn't want to fight. His work was fighting. But he did fight because Krishna wanted him to. And therefore his work became worship directly under the instruction of Krishna. So one can work for Krishna today also if one works under the direction of Krishna's representative. And the results should be offered to Krishna. That means our life should be centered on Krishna. That means that we're earning money and running on our household, but the purpose of our life is to serve Krishna. And actually those who are serious about Krishna consciousness, who are householders and earning money, if they're actually serious, they should give a significant portion of their earnings directly for furthering the Krishna consciousness movement. Not that all my bhakti is for Krishna and all my money is for me. Krishna understands I need all the money. But one should spend for assisting the activities of the Krishna conscious movement. You may think, well, the temple has so much money, why should I give? But actually that's the way it should be. All the money should come to the temple for serving Krishna. And devotees should be content to live very simply with the minimum. Nothing should be done for sense gratification. One of the disciples of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Grihastha, he was earning good money. He was a professor. In those days there weren't professors on every street corner. And he drew a good salary. Every month he would get his salary, he would give it all to the temple. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would take it and give him back a little. Actually, he arranged for a little to be given to his wife, just to run on the family. So he was earning a good income, yet he was living at the standard of a clerk. But his wife wasn't very happy. But he thought that making his guru happy is more important than making his wife happy. Because yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagati katopi. If one can satisfy the guru who is a devotee of Krishna, then we can get the mercy of Krishna. And if we don't get his mercy, then we just have to, all we can get is our wife's mercy. If we don't get our guru's mercy, then we just have to take a poor substitute, which is our wife's mercy. So anyway, that devotee, Professor Sanyal Bhakti Sudhaka Prabhu, after some time his wife became frustrated because her husband used to, after teaching in the college, he would go directly to the mutt. And the only time he spent at home was for sleeping. And she also didn't get hardly any of the money he was earning. So one day she came with all her jewelry to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and she gave it to him and said, he who this is meant for is here, so you might as well keep all the jewels here too. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was satisfied with this. He said that Bhakti Sudhaka Prabhu, even though he is a householder, by his example, he is like a guru even to sannyasis. He is fully surrendered. So there's an example of someone whose work was worship. Of course, Bhakti Sudhaka Prabhu, he also used his skills in English for writing many essays for the magazine of the Gauriya Math. He give lectures and train newcomers. He was working, but his life was actually dedicated to Krishna. So that is a good example to follow. Work can be worship if one's life is fully absorbed in Krishna. As an example, he wasn't simply saying with his mouth that I'm working for Krishna. He was completely absorbed. In fighting, there's no question of doing it half-heartedly. You're either completely into it or you're dead. If you have a job in a factory or an office, you can work at, maybe 70 or 80%, and get away with it. In a government office, you can work 1 or 2% and get away with it. But if you're fighting in a battle, there's no question of 70%. 70% is not enough. You're dead, finished. Everyone should do this. One can be a Paramahamsa in family life by offering everything to Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is another example. Manasa deho geho jo kitchumo apiluntu apade nandikisho. He says everything, my mind, my body, my home, I have offered everything to you, Nanda Kishore, Krishna. Most worshipable Srila Prabhupada is another example. Before he accepted sannyas, he was, of course, a householder. So he was busy establishing factories and selling pharmaceuticals. But he was also busy in writing and making magazines for preaching Krishna consciousness. He would visit the Gauriya Math in Allahabad regularly, and he would use his income for making this magazine back to Godhead. He was interested in preaching, and he cooperated with his godbrothers to do so. First of all, one should make the commitment that my life is meant for serving Krishna. For so many lifetimes I've been working for sense gratification. When I was in the body of a dog, I was running around looking for some scraps that people throw away at the coffee shop. When I was in the body of a camel, I was being whipped by the camel driver so that he would feed me at the end of the day. When I was in the body of a donkey, I was carrying heavy bricks just because my master would give me some grass at the end of the day. When I was in the body of a spider, I very busily made a big web, and then I was watching, and any fly that flew into it, I would run out and catch it. So now I'm in the body of a human being, I'm working hard. But I've understood that this is all simply producing reaction. This work which I'm doing is simply causing me to become again a dog, again a camel, again a donkey, again a spider, again a snake, again a factory worker, again a travel agent. So again and again and again I'm working, and again I'm being born simply to work and then die. But life is meant for a higher aspiration. To understand that I have to do some work, but let me, by doing that, try to please Krishna. And all this work in the modern age, it's mostly this ugra karma. What is that noise in the background? What is that? No, it's a granite works. This is called ugra karma, or nasty work. Some machines going on day and night cutting stone. We live in the machine age. Everything is done by machine. People are like machines. They work like machines, they eat like machines, they sleep like machines, they pass stool like machines, and they die like machines. Just you see, they'll go to work, just like some robot. So beyond this work for petty sense gratification is service to Krishna. We're not simply meant for work. Come here and serve Krishna. Offer some flowers to Krishna. Krishna will be pleased. Bring some rice, dal, sugar, ghee, some different items for offering to Krishna. Join the kirtan of the holy names of Krishna. Get trained and take Bhagavad Gita door to door so people can learn how to serve Krishna. In this way, our lives will not simply be work, 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 but our lives will be filled with the happiness of serving Krishna. One may work, but we should think in every action that my life is meant for satisfying Krishna. Hare Krishna. Is there any question about this, please? If you would like to ask a question, they can come up and speak in the mic. Okay. Or if you like, you can